errors. There's going to be errors. There's going to be a lot of errors that you're going to encounter, and they're going to frustrate you. But I'm going to go over really quick how to deal with them and how to find them early on. So we just did a bunch of stuff, a huge amount of stuff. So I'm guessing there might be an error or two in here. So let's select everything. Let's go back to Poly for a moment. The first thing you're going to want to do to find errors is visually inspect anything that looks weird. This part looks weird, but you can turn it and you can see it actually looks fine. So that's fine. And all the edges look sealed to me. So that's the first thing, is visually inspecting. The next thing you can try is turning it to a poly, clicking border, and then pressing Control A. Remember how I said that borders were all around any open place? So if you select anything when you do Control A, oops, it's Control S, Control A, and something gets selected, that's bad, and you got to deal with it. But as you can see, we have no open borders, so no problem. Convert it back. Select everything. Just because there are no open borders, there are other ways of having errors. So let's go down to STL check right here in your modified drop-down list. I want it to check for everything. I'm getting better at this. There are no errors. Now, why would I expect there to be errors? I've dealt with a map with over 2,000 errors before. If you get errors, don't freak out about it. You can solve them pretty easily. So it's just kind of a rule of thumb. You're going to probably expect, especially with some, you saw me do all this kind of stuff to this map, you might expect some errors. And what do I mean by this? Double face is pretty easy to make. I'll show you. Let's say you're happily moving along, creating your geometry, right? And let's say you do something like this. Oh, hey, I think it'd be awesome if I put a triangle right here. There's already a triangle there. There's no reason to put that. So what happens when you do something like that? Control A, check. You're going to get 5 errors just for that one thing. So like I said, when I had over 2,000, something like this causes 5. You delete that one polygon, you're going to be down 5 errors. So don't freak out if you have a huge amount of errors. Don't worry about it. Well, worry about it, but don't sit there going, oh no, I've completely ruined my map. Just delete that, and the errors are gone. I ended up thinking that was a double face that was probably a multiple edge, because it ended up not being created on the same plane. So let's create a double face. That was a multiple edge because 2 edges were being shared by that triangle. This edge and this edge were both being shared by more than 2 shapes at a time, and that's not good. So a double face rather, let's go over to something. Let's do this triangle because this one looks easiest. I'm going to create a polygon in the opposite direction on the same vertexes as that. And now you see, even though technically all my normals on one side are facing inward, I now have this. And you wouldn't believe how common this would be if you created all your own polygons, which is again why I don't really like doing that method unless I absolutely have to. I like welding vertices, except sometimes that can mess with the geometry. I like bridging a lot. I don't like cap holes. I don't know if I already mentioned it, but I've never gotten that to export correctly. The cap holes or cap holes modifier, you might have seen it or might have heard about it. I never got it to work ever in Halo, so I don't cap holes except manually. Anyway, you're going to see now this is a double face error. It's also going to complain about multiple edges because, like I said, I created it on the same thing. So now we have 5 errors. Again, 5 errors that can be solved just by deleting. Oops. Remember, everything's selected when you have STL check on. Just delete that. Again, 5 errors gone. So let's see, what else is there? There's spike. This is another pretty easy one to simulate. Huh. Spike is not what I thought it was. Well, regardless, this is one of the cases I was about to talk about next, but I suppose I could talk about right now. There are some errors that STL check will not detect, but Halo tool will. And those are really, really annoying to fix. I thought that was spike. I really did. I guess there are other spikes. Open edge is kind of obvious. Multiple edge I went over. I'm going to have to look up and post what spike is because it wasn't what I assumed it was. But regardless, it's something that once you identify it, you'll be able to fix. And you saw when there was an error, I'm just going to delete this vertex. I'm going to have to undo it, but there we go. When there was an error, STL check will highlight the nearest polygons where that error occurred. So the bottom one's hard to see because it's so tiny, but you might be able to see the red highlight there. That makes it even more obvious in wireframe. And so you go 3 errors for one open edge. You go, okay, these 3 are the errors. The error must be this. And of course it is. Now everything's back to normal. So we went over visually inspect your model because I guess it's a perfect example. Stuff like this isn't detected by the error checking that we have. STL stands for stereolithography, for those of you who know, and we aren't really doing that in Halo. However, it does work very nicely for picking out some of the most common errors. I'm gonna delete that modifier. So for stuff that the check doesn't work out, the border check doesn't work out, your visual check doesn't work out, there's one last step. It's actually not something I can replicate very easily, I think, without having an issue. Not very helpful error. You'll see in your Halo directory, we now have this .wrl file. That's going to require a change out of me because I use a 64-bit version of 3D Studio Max. If you have 32-bit version, you're good. If you have 64-bit version, you have to download the 32-bit version to use .wrl files. Luckily, I've done that. I'll save this as gin. We'll see. Okay, let's open our gin. The Mass FX, okay. I don't remember Mass Effects. Mass Effect, good game, buy it, whatever. We have our thing open. Genuinely do not know what that Mass Effect was that it didn't like, but whatever. It's not a big deal. I'm also gonna fix this edge right here because it's just bugging me. Genuinely. It's just not... whatever. We'll go over smoothing and fixing stuff like that later because it's not something that's too easy to fix without ripping it apart. Let's stay on point. Go to fix this. Let's go to our import. Go to your Halo Custom Edition directory and import this RAW file. Do not reset the scene. Create primitives is up to you. That means, do you want to create shapes on the scene? I do. That doesn't matter. And so what it did was it imported a shape that was the problem. And you'll see it has 19 entities selected if you press the H key. This is why I really don't like rural. This is how many shapes it took just to create this one triangle. I mean, kind of seriously unnecessary. But that's interesting how it thinks that still exists. Oh, this whole thing is considered Taurus. Okay. So Taurus is our actual level. Master Chief's there. That's there. Which means everything that isn't these three has been imported in the .wrl file. So if we select those, if we accidentally deselected it somehow, it's bright red and intersecting all our geometry, so it's kind of hard to miss, unless, of course, we had a, I don't know, bright red map. I'm realizing this is from the texture. So it's just to exemplify my point a bit more. Okay, there. So let's say you had a bunch more errors instead of one, and you're like, okay, where's the error? Just press H to get to your hierarchy. Select all these, and you'll see it even happened to select parts of here. That's actually interesting to me. We'll see about that. I don't know about that right there. You get to see a live error checking here. No errors STL. Maybe I have stumbled upon an actual magical... Okay, everything is mesh, yeah. I've stumbled upon an actual undetectable error. This is great for the tutorial, I suppose. Okay, let's import this new .wrl. Aha, so everything else was fine, but it's saying these are bad. So I'm going to go ahead and fix these. Exports out well. And there we go. There we go. So, error solving. We all got to do it. If I was building this a bit better, it wouldn't have happened the way it did. I definitely thought the bomb was going to have some kind of problems. I didn't think it was going to have that many. But as you can see, now that we have this is just awesome. This means it worked. And we can start playing around with this weird looking map. No base yet, but I could easily, now that we've solved all those errors, I could easily go into this thing. Select. Click on the back here and extrude that. I have to put back facing. There we go. I could extrude this all the way back and start making a base in here. And because I'm just extruding that face, it won't cause any more errors that I can imagine.